Okay,
I
right.
started. Yep. Thanks for reminding me. Yes. So we were discussing like creating a list in Python and the exercise. So here what we are doing creating a shopping list with a list of numbers. Now in this items, we have to specify them as string values. So you can see we can have apple, mango, carrot, and the last one item banana. Right. So this is how you may define the shopping list. Right. Simply you can save this. So let me save this, save. Right. I'll go to our folder. This is program 18 list, shopping list. Right. Let me put in that way. Now, if you run this one, you will get the other window and nothing is there. But simply, if you want to print, you can now use shopping list. So it's already there. Okay. So the question asks you what to do. What to do. So we want to get the length of the list, right? Can one of you remind me? Do you remember what is the method that we need to use for this purpose? Yes, exactly. We have to use what? We can say print length, and then we can say shopping list. So this is number of item in the list. So it says 4. Okay. So this is the creation of shopping list in Python, and then we are going to get the length. So simply we can say okay, length shopping list. Right now let's run. We have only few commands, right? It print the length of the shopping list. Okay, the next one, let's see what we need to do. We need to print the items on the list. So there are two ways that we have discussed. Print items on the list. So simply you can use print and you can say shopping list if you want. That is the simplest way to print, right? If you run it, you will see. Right now, so this is the shopping list, or else each individual items we can get it separately using a for loop. We can say for, we can have variable I in range, not range, you can directly say shopping list, and then you can say okay, print I. Okay, you can see that in this particular case we'll go each item separately. Now that we looked at printing item, let's move on to the next one. Okay, we want to add rice to the list. It doesn't specify where to add, so you can simply use add rice to the end of the list. We can say add rice to the end of the list, which means we can say okay, shopping list dot append, okay, whatever the value. So in this case it's a rice, right? So now we have learned how to add an item. So again, it asks us to print, right? So we can just print it and see whether there's anything added. So we have appending be done. Now we want to print it again. So similar way, we can have print. Let's take this short one, shopping list will give us the outcome. So if I run it, right, so you will see something similar to this one. Right, I have a small mistake, print n is missing my code. Let me say run module. Right, now you see that before and after insertion, we have rice. Right. Right. Can you try the other ones? I think you should be able to. Can you do the sort in the list? We have discussed this idea. Right. What we need to do then, we have printed the list. That part we did it. The next one, sort. We can say sorting the list. Simply we can say shopping list dot sort. That's all we need to do. So this will do it again. And then it asks after sorting to print the first item. So we can say print shopping list. We can say 0. That will get the first one. So let's see how far we went. Okay, you see that there are 4 instances: the apple, mango, carrot, and banana. And this is like element wise print. And after adding rice, you print it again and you are getting the first element. Yes, that's perfectly all right. Now let's move on to the next one. I want to remove the first item of the list, right? You want to remove the first items, right? How do you remove? One thing is del keyword, removing the first item. Right? So simply we can say, okay, we can say del shopping list, we can say 0, for example. Yeah, when you put 0, what will happen? It will remove this, right? So we can now see print, how do you say this? Shopping list. No, simply we can say shopping list. Right, now let's see how this will work. Run module. Okay, it will run there. So this first line for the print statement, second one we also print statement, third one we have a for loop, fourth one, right? Yes, we have apple, mango, carrot, banana, and rice. You see now, once we finish this work, we have only originally we have 5, and now once you remove apple, banana came the first item. Right. So I think that's all we need to discuss about the loops. Sorry, lists. Okay, any questions before we move to the next one? Okay, so let's move to the next one. In the next one, we are going to look at how we can have nested list. The idea of nested list is we can create list inside a list. Now think about our previous shopping list data structure, that list, right? So you can, whenever you want to get it, right, we can put a nested list with additional information. Now, for example, if I want to go for shopping and I need to know the number of items that I'm going to purchase, right? So that is exactly what you see in this code. It's on a my shopping list and it starts empty, right? In right hand side, you will see opening of a square bracket and closing of a square bracket, right? And then you can add items to the list. So now this time we are going to have both the item and the number as well, what exactly you want to buy, right? So let me, without further delay, we'll go to this one. Right, this is what we have. Okay, so this is what we got. Okay, now let me start with idle session. So in this one, I'm going to now create another window. So that window, right, I'm going to say my shopping list. So here is how I'm going to start with, right? I will, yeah. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to create my shopping list. You know, I can make it empty. Now, when you say empty, that means you are expecting values, right? So it's like we have variable I, will assign it to 0. Right. Now, let's append something. Same append command. Now you have seen. So when we say append command, we are putting actually another vector. We have apple and 5, right? So that's going to be added as a list. So originally we have a list in my shopping list card, and then it's matched, right? So what I said was if you want, you can write it as a separate script. So I'm going to use the idle session. My shopping list, it's empty. So this is emptiness. Say that I don't have anything. Then we can have my shopping list dot append, right? Now, when you say append, you have to decide what you want to enter. Simply in this one, I'm going to say, right, apple, and we can say 5. Ankle and yes. So now you will see what. So let me run this. Right, I missed one brackets here. Right, now this one should be a list of lists, which means we have to have a square bracket here and at the end like this. Right, now let me run. Let's look at right. So let me print my shopping list. So if I do that, okay, spelling mistake again. It should be double P. Right, now you see within the list we have another list called apple. That means I want to purchase 5 apples, right? So likewise we can add another, right? So let me add another one. So I can say my shopping list dot append, right? So you can add multiple values. Now, for example, let's add oranges. right? So we are going to have orange. Let's say the amount that we need is 7. Right. Again, I miss my bracket. Oh, my shopping list not defined. My shopping list, maybe capitalization matters. Remember, we discussed it should be capital S. Right. That's all. Okay. Closing bracket is missing. Right. Ah, capital is missing. Right. Now you can see. So now we can see we have two items together with their weights. Okay. Now try the following. So it says my shopping 01. That means when you say my shopping 0 means the first row. Right. So we can say, okay, print my shopping list. Right. Now when you say like this, so you will have everything. Okay. Right. Now let's see how we can access each of these elements. So let's look at how to access elements. Now we know this is my shopping list. Done. Um, you don't have to say this. Instead, we can have 0, which will give you the first line. Right. Now, when we have my shopping list 0, hopefully we are getting the first element. Now, let's say the value apple, 5 apples, I want to make it 7 apples. Right. So how you are going to do this? So you can say, okay, print my shopping. We have 0. Yes, any arbitrary number depending on the matrix size. So what's going on, my? There are a lot of errors the way I have written it. Right. So you see it gets a 5. That means apple 1. So now we are going to make it to change to 7 each because we have the other one also 7. Right. So we can just check. Right. Now let's look at the changing. First of all, I'm going to shopping. Right. And then we can say my shopping list 0 and 1. right? My shopping list 0 and 1. Yes, the first row, second column. So that's how we need to read about this. Okay, now I'm going to change the value. Now, right now we have 5 apples, orange 7 apples. Let's say I want to the same amount. Right. Now we know how to access elements, so we can assign. The right now this is 5. I'm going to say this is 15. Yes. Okay. So you have already changed this. So you can see apple.50. Right. And finally, you can print the whole list one after the other. And when you get ready for the next session, please raise your hands. Right. I think with that one, you got an overall idea how things are represented as lists. But when our program getting complex, right, we are discouraged sometimes use of listed users. Right. Any questions from this side? Yes. Right. Let's move on then. Right. So we now discuss how to have multiple plots, and finally we have nested plots. Okay. Right. Next, move on the next one. Now, one of the important one when it comes to calculations. Dala. Oh, ikat dala. Oh, yan ang lock. Right. So when we have a matrix could be considered as a nothing but list of lists. So here we have a 3 by 3 matrix A. This is a matrix, and each row we will have a list, so that we have 3 rows. That means we have 3 lists, right? And similarly you can access the rows as well as element. So let me quickly show you that one before we move on to tuples. Right. Now let me close this. This we have already seen. Right. Okay. So let me take the idle session first. Yeah, this is a script. Right. Let me take file name. No, I mean we can type it here. So we can say okay, matrix. We can say okay. So remember that we have a set of lists. So we will have 1, 2, 3, right? Then 4, 5, 6, then 7, 8, 9. Okay. Sorry, this should be 9. Okay, so to end up, you have another bracket. So this is matrix. So if you print it, nothing wrong. You will get as it is. But then again, if you say print matrix 0, That 0 indicates the row number. So that means the first number. So it's 1, 2, 3. So if you need like each individual elements, then you have to have another argument. So let's say we have this matrix, right? And then we can say print matrix right. We can say 1 if you want to get the first row. Yes. And then if you need to select the rows, that will also the same. So you can say, let's say 3. 3 is not there. We have only 2. Right. So we are getting 7, 8, and 9. If you need to access individual elements, let's say I will print it again. Let me look at the central value. Right. Okay. Now, to get a particular value, let's say I want to access the middle element, that is 5, right? So we can say, okay, matrix. Right. So then we can say 1. When you say 1, we know what will happen. And for the same thing, we'll have, let's say another one. So we can say matrix 1 and let's say 1. Right. So we'll get the middle element like this. So make a note of this. But there are easy implementations. So that will part we'll discuss with the other modules. Right. Now, if you understood this one, can you please raise your hand so that I know that you have completed and you have no issues. Right. Okay. So with that said, you will see later on when we draw graphs, the data, we will see everything as a flat table. Okay. Right. We'll move on to the next one. That is tuples. Right. It's very similar to lists. Right. Very similar to list. That means you have an order, you have consecutive items. Right. So tuple is known as an ordered collection of items. It seems very similar to lists, but we have to use different brackets. So you have seen earlier the square brackets. So here the normal bracket, or we can say now the first one, what we have is we have a square brackets, and then tuples, we have a normal rounded brackets. Remember that once you create the tuple, you cannot change, remove, change, right? It will be a work as a read-only list, right? And also the term immutable data type is used. Now let me demonstrate some of the uses of tuples like in previous case. Right, I'm going to go to Python. I'm going to create, right? I'm going to create a tuple with some numbers. So I'm going to say, okay, number tuple, right? So within the bracket, you can have a set of values. So we have 11, 2, 23, 45, 50. So that's a NumTuple. Only difference is now once you define, then it will not be easy to communicate. So in this particular case, we have number tuple, we have 5 numbers, and you cannot change these values, but there will be an order. So when you say this number tuple and you can print it, yes, it will print like this. You can get the length of this. Yes, that's also possible. We have 5, right? And the other ones like accessing, you can access element. Notation will be the same. So notation is same. Right. So we have length is given. Now you can look what you have. Now, for example, we can simply say, okay, print number tuple we did, or we can say for I in number tuple. Yes, we can say print I. Very similar to the list. It will access each individual element. And if you want to access only the first one, so we can say print number tuple. It's a brackets and 0. Yep. So we'll get. But then the problem is you cannot change this, right? If you try to change, it will complain. Now, for example, if I take this and let's say I have 11, I want to make it, for example, number tuple 0, mean the first one. Let me make it to 100, not 11. Right? It says since this is a Python, it will not support, right? So if you look at this type of this is number tuple. Yes. So it says it's tuple. You can remove and add new items. We can, yes, ordered collection, but then you cannot change. You cannot change this, right? Therefore, we will call this as an immutable data type. Immutable data type. Okay, if you have finished up to this point, can you please raise your hands so that I can move to the next one? Yes, good, thanks. You can lower the hands now. Right, so that's about the tuple. So here are some of them. You can count method is actually gives you how many times particular value appears. Like let's say count 1 will count number of times 1 appears. Then you can get the index, right? So you can check a particular value and then from there you can infer index. Then length, you can also use a length function to get the number of items in the tuple. And deletion, it says del. Remember, here you cannot individually remove, but you can remove the whole thing. So that's what it says, del tuple name. Right, now I think we have discussed about 2, list and then tuple. Let's move to the third one. It's called sets. Now sets are different from lists and tuples. because both list and tuple, they are ordered collection, whereas sets are unordered collections. And previous case, both list and tuples can have duplicates, but here it's unique. You cannot have same number twice in this state, right? And another thing, we will use curly brackets. Now we start with the square brackets, then normal brackets, rounded brackets, and now we have curly brackets, right? One thing, last item is very, very important. Items cannot be changed, but new items can be added over the set. Okay, it's slightly different, right? It says items cannot be changed, but new items can be added to the list. So that's possible, right? So let me demonstrate some of these, right? I will get the idle. Right. So let's create, I'm going to say this is as a number set. Similar values I have used just to figure it out how it works. So let me start with the idle session. Right. So let me share. Right. Okay. Now let's create a set. So in this one, what we are going to do, we will create a, okay, maybe I will have a new file. So then it will easier. Right. Okay. Right. Now I'm going to say, okay, number set, and you can have curly brackets, and within bracket you can have anywhere you want. So we can have some numbers, right? So it says 11 to 23, 45, and then 51. Okay. So different numbers. Printing will not have any change. So you can say print number set. Right. So let me save. Right. Okay. Now run and observe. Let me put into my Dropbox folder. And we have these numbers. Right, okay. Similar to the previous one, let me see. We have dialog, yes. So I'm going to save this to the desktop. Let's go to dialog. It's program number 19. We can say control structures. We get control structures. When you say run module, here is the output. So we'll get curly brackets. So now you can use for loop if you want for I in range. We can say number tuple print I. Sorry, it's not a tuple, so that was a mistake. Should be number set. Sorry about this. So now it says you cannot, okay, so one other mistake I have used range. So you can simply say for I in number set. Yeah, we can say print I. Sorry about that. So simply we can have the very same format that we have used, that is printing. So I can include it here in the code, right? I can say, okay, for I in number set, we can say print I, which will print it, right? We can check and run module. Yes, you will get. Okay, but you can add the items right now. For example, I can add number 6. You can say number set dot add. Let me add 6. We can print the number set. Yes. You see now 6 is added. And there's no specific code. It's not sorted. Sometimes you might think, and sometimes you might confuse us, right? The values could be different, right? And we don't know where it will insert, right? So sometimes you might think, okay, it's not, it's ordered. No, it's not, right? Let's move on to the next one. If you want to delete, you can say del, and then we can say, for example, del, we can say list. We can say, okay, first, sorry, not shopping list. We can say number set. Right. So it says now this is not possible. I told you this is immutable. That means you cannot remove, and there's no index as well. I remember indexing is not there because you don't have an order. So only way possible is you can say del number set, which might remove everything, right? So that's about the sets. Okay, if you have finished up to this point, please let me know. We'll move to the last one, that is dictionaries. Right. Those who finished, can you please raise your hand? Ishani, Chamara, you need help? Ravindu, Yumi, Mayura? Need more time? Right, thanks. you can lower the hands now. Let's move on to the next one then. Right. So as you can see, creation of a set is easy. You start with the curly brackets and you can comma separate them. Printing can be done in the same ways that we have learned earlier using print and whole set. But if you want, you can print each individual elements. Getting length will be the same, but you can add the elements, right? And when you say add, it's not append, for example. We don't know where there it's going to, put it. So we don't know that. Then we can remove item by using a remove method and with the value, or you can use discard. Right. So with that, we'll cover the basics that you need. Right. Last one. Okay. The last control structure is called dictionary. As name implies, you have some key and a value pair. Right. Now, if it is a Sinhala to English dictionary, so the key will be in Sinhala and value will be in so yeah, so the mapping is there. So when we have like key value pair, so let's say you convert from, let's say, Sinhala to English, as I told you earlier. So the Sinhala words works as a key, and equivalent value in English will be the values, right? So let me explain the use of dictionary. Now, this is slightly different from what we have seen earlier, right? So, but don't confuse. So we'll open up a new file, right? And maybe I'll adjust it to half of my screen. Right. Okay. So first of all, let's create a dictionary. Now, one thing you need to remember, the first two data structures, that means list and tuple, we had list, what you call list and tuples, and then we have a numerical index, right? We use numerical index to access element. Now with dictionaries, this is going to be changed, right? So I'm going to say this is as a number dic, right? Just to say that it's a dictionary. And then you can have set of values, right? Okay, so what are the, we can say, for example, one, so that is one key, colon, and then ichi. So in Japanese, right? So this example, I'm using one side Sinhala and the other side is Japanese, right? So likewise, let's say we have two, right? And then ichi, then ni, right? Okay, third one, we can say sun, right? So these are the values. Now the difference is, as you can see, you have to have a comma each item. Right? So we can have finish this with a bracket like this. This is the dictionary. And you can print it and see print number dict. We'll give the details. So file, let's say save. We can say program 20 dictionary. So let's run module, run module. Okay, so you have these key value pairs. So we have three values. Okay. Now let's look at how can we access elements, right? So if you say print number set, it's perfectly all right. Sorry, number dict, sorry. So you see, you will getting this similar to this one. But let's look at the for loop. We remember the for loop. We can say for I in number dict, and we can say print I. But this time you will get only key values. This will give you only key values. So if you need the values, right, values only, so we have I in numeric number dictionary, print I, we should give the values, but we have key pairs. If you need values, you have to slightly modify this. You take this one and use yeah. So we have to say dot values, right? Now we are getting the values part of it. The third one, we can have items. So you can have the same thing, we can slightly update. We can get as a separate item, right? So in this case, we have for I in number dict dot values, right? So that will give values only. So there we will see items. So we can say items. You see, now you have the pairs, right? So here are the three ways of accessing plots. Okay, any questions from this? Are you clear about this one? Right. Now let's access some of them. So let's say I want to access. Now this time there's no indexes, but what we have is keys. I use keys. Now, for example, we can say print, we can say number date, right? And then, so this is the dictionary. And within bracket, we can say, okay, what is the value you are looking for? Let's say 1. It is itchy. Right? Similarly, you use 2, then will be knee, and 3 will be sun. So let's say we are going to add a fourth one to this. Now for that, we can use add items. So we can say number dict, right? Then we have 4. Right. The fourth one, we are going to define it here. Right. Fourth one, we can say yon. Right. Now, if you rerun it, this time you will see there are 4. Yes, key value pairs 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 we have added later on. So similarly, you can remove based on the value, or you can create we will have, yes, adding we have done. We have discussed different ways of accessing the methods. Right. Okay. So right now we looked at the items. Let's say I want to change the item. Fourth item, no, it's not yon, I expect. Right? Let's say something else. Right. Let's say the fourth one, 4 yon. Instead of yon, I'm going to have sheep. So we can say number dictionary. And then we can have, yeah. So this should be brackets. We are going to identify a new one. Right. So let's see what will happen. Now, if you go back here, right, now let's look at the fourth element. If you repeat the same thing, you will see, okay, fourth is added, right? Fourth is also added there. Okay, now we have some idea about the dictionaries, right? So everything is actually I have given there. So you can try each of these commands. So once I finish today's session, I will also upload this one. Right. Now that's about the control structures. Right. Any questions you will have so far, please? Okay. So silence means I assume that you don't have any issues, questions. But if you do so, please let me know, at least in the chat. Right. The next thing that I'm going to discuss is about the string values. Actually, when it comes to string values, right? For example, we have is dialog. We know uh, it's a word, and then each individual element you can index it. So in a way, list is nothing but we have right set of characters. So in this figure, if you look at, you can see dialog and then indexes. Remember, indexing, there are two parts. This is called forward indexing. You start with 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and so on. Right. Now, when you want to access in elements, simply now you can type. For example, here we can say, right? So once you have it, you can access this, right? So when you say S0 means the first one, is it same as S minus 6? Similarly, S3, right? And then at the end, it will be S5. Right? Okay, let me show you quickly a couple of things. Right, I'm going to get the idle session. So as I told you, we can say S. You can use any, anything at all. So we can say print S. It works, no problem. Then you can get individually S0 is the first character. Similarly, -6 also the same. Yes. Then S3, right. So forward indexing and backward indexing is very, very important, especially when you want to filter out some data point or sampling your population. Right. Okay, we'll move to the next one. In the next one, you will see we can have substrings. Now, when you're creating substrings, it's similar to range function, a range function. You have three things like start, stop, and step. That's all. Right. Right. Let me show you. Now, few things you need to note here. I'm going to get the shell. Maybe I can close it, everything, and I'll start new. Right. I'll. Right. Here is what I'm going to do. So just discuss what we have right now. Right. So this is to look after substrings. Substring means part of it. Now, S, we know it's dialog. Yes. And then let's say I'm going to slice this. Now, this is to say start and stop. Can you guess what will be the output? We have S0, S1, S2, S3. That means 4 letters, right? So we will get it like this. Now, one thing you need to remember, if you have 0 or the highest value, then you can simply use the string value. Right now, this is dialog and is 0 to 4. Yes, we slice, now we get that. Now, similarly, let's look at this one. Any guesses? 3 to 6. You can use chat to send me the answers. So when you say 3 to 6, yes, exactly. You can try. So 3 means 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, right? You'll get log. Then this one, right. Let's move to the other one. You can try. You don't have to wait until like. So this is to say 0 to 6. That means everything, isn't it? Look at here, right? This is what we have 0 to 6. 6 means up to 6. So that means everything, right? Whole dialog. Now thing is, when you have start and stop like this, the shortcut is you can simply have colon only, right? You will get the same result. Right. Another one, we can say 3, oh sorry, S3, 6, 2. Sorry. Okay. Can you guess? Don't type this in Python. Can you guess what will happen? So 3 is there, 3 plus 2, then right. So you start with the third index, that means 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You should get log, right? LG. So because they are, you are going to have 1 and then 3. You will get LG. Now, similar to this one, the 3, 6 is the end value, and then we will have this stop. Yes, we are getting the same. So which means if you have something like this, we can see 6 and 1. Right. So in this particular case, you can simply have this S colon colon, make a note of this. That's all. We get the same thing. Okay, final one will work on the other way around. So for that, we have -1, 2, plus 7. Right. Now we have -1, -7. -1, -7. And the step is -1. You will get this. Now, since -1, -7 indicates starting point and the ending point, since you have the starting and ending, you can simply say S colon colon, then -7. So in this one, -1, so we can have -1, which you will get the same answer. So in examination point of view, maybe you need to know this thoroughly. Only way possible is you go through it. Right. Okay. Right. Okay. So there are some more exercises which I think you can do at leisure time. Right. And finally, if you want to print the characters separately. We can say for character in, what is it? What is it before? Yes. So we can have character in S. S is the dialog message. We can say print character. So you see, it will take one at a time, right, to print this one. Okay. So with that one, we can conclude this session on the data structures. Right, now let's look at object-oriented programming. And it's easier to share compared to file processing. Right. In object orientation, I told you everything is looked as instance and classes are there. And then you can use right. So everything we are going to look as an objects in object-oriented programming. Let's take a game. Game characters are some of the objects. If we take people who participate in this session, we can, get them as participant, and then we can look for the values. So instance and the class. Right. Now, another thing that we are going to discuss when you talk about the object orientation is the classes. Now, classes are nothing but, right, we can look. And in object orientation, it's easy because everything is together, data as well as the methods. Right? So we have to have the instance variable, data members, and any other methods and method functions. We have to look. Right. Now, often when it comes to object orientation, we use some tools and techniques. Here is one of them to create class diagrams. And as you can see, there are three parts are there: classes, instance variables, and the methods. Right. Now that we have this credit card class, we can create any number of credit cards once we have that. Right. So all the instance variable and methods now we have to implement. Right. Now let's look at some of the examples for objects, person. Right. Instance variables are name, age, and addresses, could be used to describe a person. And the action performs walking, talking, breathing, and then running. Let's take an email application. We have instance variables, we have methods. Recipient list, subject, body, they are the original invoice. Yes. Right. Last one, we will have a car object, which is actually used to create. Right. The variables are year, model, and mileage, and the method is accelerate, and ABC. Right. Some graphical representation which shows the classes with actual classes. I told you it's like a pattern, and where you are going to build cars going through the factory, or we in what we say is we will have the class constructor, to build these cars, right? Right. Now let's look at self-identifier. Now you see, when we create or when we find some documentation for some libraries, you might get completely different here. Now the idea is we are going to have key roles, right? So what happens, since this is important, right? So always you use self, which refers to the same object, right? Now let's look at a small class, right? Can you tell me what are the variables we have in the class? Yes. So you can see classes we define as a class, and then we will provide the name. Right. And here we have underscore underscore init underscore underscore. This is um, we can say it's the middle one. Right. So the beauty of this is your data as well as all methods you are put into a single umbrella. Right. With the first one in it, whatever we have used to can be, find it here. And then we have get name. This is to get you know uh, the character or the person, right? So for that we have to use. And finally, study, independent of the data you have, you can simply say, okay, study. So you have different type of the class diagrams available. Okay, next one, right? Shall we try these two together? Right, hopefully we'll try together. First of all, try this, and then let me know by if you have finished, you can switch on your video. Right. Right, finished. Let me start. Okay. I'm going to get. Right. I will start with the idle. Right. So let me put. Now we can see, right? The very first thing, I'm going to take the new window. The very first thing we need to do is the create the class. So simply we can say, okay, class. So what was the class name? We'll say student. Then the constructor. Right. We have the constructor. Def is the, right now we know functions, and this is a special method. You start the brackets, list any arguments. So we will get this student name from the outside. Right. And simply we can say, okay, self, we have to have colon here. Here the colon, right? So we can say self dot name should be student name, right? So that's the first one. Now we can create any number of students used in this class, right? So let me say run module. Okay. So we go to Dropbox. Right. And then we have init self and student name. Self name is student name. So I will save this in the desktop. Right. We can say, okay, program number 21. I'm going to say student class, right? Now I have ran these two, right? I have ran, so which means I can create students. So how do you create? Now let's say student one, I can say, okay, student. And we can provide a name, let's say Kamal. So this will create an object. So student one, now it's an object. Type student one. Yeah. You see, it will have already created the object, but nothing very useful because we have not many methods. So let's add some methods. Right. Now the second method I'm going to add, getting a name of the student. We can say get name self, and basically you are return right. We can say self dot name. Let me run again, run module. Right, now we can do the same thing. Let's say S1 is my first student, and I'm going to say Kamal, right? And then we will have an method. Let's say S1 dot get name. Yes, you see, you get Kamal. Likewise, you can create another one. Now let me use S2 for this. Yes, we have like this. So similarly, if you say, right now we can get his name. Yes, we are getting like this. Now, once you actually get used, it is one of the easiest way you can develop software, but not necessarily. Python actually support everything. Right. One more thing. Let's say study. Right. Now we have created two methods. Let's have the study method. Study, I'm going to say return study. Right. Now let's run it. Right. Now I can again, like earlier, I can create, let's say one. We'll get the name. We can get study. Yes. You can see it's clearly separate. Okay, so with that, I think we can try another example. So this time I'm going to give you one and you are supposed to create the class and share me the answer, right? So we'll move to the next one. Okay, create a car class with the year, model and mileage, and then have two methods, accelerate and brake.
A small question.
Yes.
In the constructor, why have we used two parameters, self and student name?
Okay, self is
Uh,
always should be there. This object orientation means like object interactions are there. So we can create method for other objects. Now we are going to look at very briefly on this one, and we are going to look at only methods works with the very same objects. So the first one is always self, right? So then when you call it, you don't have to tell that. But here you are going to refer self, meaning like you are going to apply this method to the very same object, the very same instance. The next one, it depends. Now that constructor, during constructor, what we could do is we can assign the values. Now in previous one, we had a name. So which means we have to get a value for the name. So during the constructor, whatever we provide the student name will be assigned to this variable. So this is what we say self dot name is student name. The name actually we will provide when we create the object.
self is a kind of a keyword.
Which one? Self?
Yes.
Yes.
Self is like fixed.
Yes, it's
So for
fixed. And
everything.
then actually you can use any other as well. But this is like traditionally we put self. Even if you put ABC, it will work. Like ABC, the first
Okay.
one doesn't have to be self, but self is what we used to have. But one important thing is it refers itself. That's why it says self, because you can create a method to reflect the other object. Now, when I say the get name self, meaning like you are getting the same object's name. But sometimes, let's say you have a communicate with someone else, and if you want to get the other object's name, then it's something else. It's not itself then. Have you learned object orientation, or this is the first time you are learning? Just curious.
I did long time ago.
Now, in Python, actually, you don't need like classes to create piece of software. But that is like one way of creating software. And remember, we discussed all the data types in the beginning. They are classes. In class, remember? Let me go back until you work on this. We will have shell, right? So int, when we say type 1, then it says class int. Right? So if you say help int, I don't know whether we get it. Yes, we get it. Right? So here about the classes. Class int, right? And it's an object you are getting. And if you look at all the method, you see self there, right? All the methods create under int, you will see self, and then only you are going to have any other things, right? You see self is there. So likewise, if you see the other, classes, you will realize. So when you have a particular method can be applied on itself or can be applied to any other object. So mainly here we will reference if we are applying to itself, the same object, then we can use self. Okay, I think the time is up. So maybe you can go through this one. So we have complete almost the object orientation. The only remaining part is numerical Python, which I will discuss in the next session. And then also like I will introduce, what packages you may have to learn to, know or use data analytics part. So that we'll discuss in the next class. And with that one, we are going to conclude. Okay, then we'll meet next week. So we'll meet on next Tuesday for the final session. Thanks, Dave. Good night.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sampath.
Thank you.